Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Well, we apologize, guys. Hopefully, you're seeing this from our personal pages. We were trying to get our banner and the event page to stream, and that's why we went live and canceled. So we're good to go now, but we just don't have our logos. So, special appreciation to our sponsors this week. We will get that up and ready for next week. Sales Dash CRM, Josh Lyles, one of the most specific freight CRMs out there. Great guy, great product. Go check him out. Also, where we work, HD Ships. If you're looking for an agency program, message me, Will Hopkins, Black Box Logistics, and then Trillo, who's doing all of our back end stuff, which we really appreciate. So, yeah, how's your week been, Will? You excited for this one?
Dude, it's been good. It's been a busy week, and I just started a 72-hour fast for some reason. I read online that it's good for you. So I'm going on day 2 right now. So ready for the weekend. It's been a hell of a week. So again, if you guys are tuning in, apologies for the technical difficulties. We're still getting things figured out. Should be good to go for next week. But this week we got an exciting guest. You might know him from his latest post right now. So ready for mac and cheese and what it taught him about sales. He's the shipping manager for Crunchyroll. And without further ado, we'll add him to the stage. Everybody welcome Matthew. Matthew, how are you doing?
How's it going, Matt?
It's good. How are y'all?
Doing well, doing well. How's the weather down there? And you're in Texas, right? Dallas?
I'm in Austin right now, between Dallas and Austin. While I kind of moved up there, we had a bit of last night, so it's been cooler than it normally is here, which is nice. So it's been in Austin.
Nice. So you're going to be moving for this role coming up north?
Yep, that's the plan. Yeah, Austin is a good hub for a lot of stuff. It's good for logistics. Change to be up in Dallas. Hopefully the housing prices will be a little bit easier to stomach. Yeah, it's been a good time here in Austin.
Oh, definitely. Austin's a great city from what I hear. So I guess we always like to start. I mean, tell us kind of a little bit about how you got into logistics and kind of your background. I'm sure some of our audience knows you from LinkedIn or a little bit about you, and some they're seeing you for the first time.
Yeah. So let's see my longest background. I wanted to be a pilot for as long as I could think of, as long as I could remember kindergarten. And I was, fully ready to go in the military. Went to A&M, got a degree from A&M. Was set to go in the Marine Corps, and then senior year of college, they went, "Oh, hey, you got a defect. You're never going to be a pilot for the Marines. So good luck." But they said, "You're good enough on the ground. You can walk, can't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I sure can." So they put and I figured I don't like walking too much. I like driving in. The best way to do that in the Marine Corps was to be a logistics officer. So I did logistics for 4 years, based out of Camp Pendleton in California, driving trucks around, big stuff. It was a lot of fun. Really caught the bug there of like, oh man, I really like what's going on here. So kind of got out of the Marine Corps, worked at Apple. I did logistics for Apple, specifically parcel from China into the U.S., Canada, a couple places down in South America. I moved from that to a place called Kendra Scott, a jewelry company. And the move for there was my wife told me, I came at people, but like people know Kendra Scott. And so I said, okay, all right. Moved over to Kendra, and I controlled all of the transportation for Kendra Scott. So we factories again in China, India, Thailand, Vietnam. I moved all the volume into the U.S., Austin, and then out to our different sales channels, retail, e-commerce, wholesale, those types of things. And then I moved over to a place called Four Hands, which does furniture. So a bit different, but again, logistics world, a box is a box. I don't really care what you put in that box. And then moved to a place called FabFitFun, which was a subscription fashion retail type of thing, which was fun. And then I'm in at Crunchyroll. And Crunchyroll, kind of for all the people who out there who don't know or are scratching their heads because they've been subscribers for a while, Crunchyroll is a subscription video on demand service we license Japanese animation content and we distribute it in the West. My part in it all is that we have a pretty sizable e-commerce store that sells based off of those that IP. So we sell it, I ship it, and we do like comic book, Blu-ray, all the way up to like I just shipped a $6,000 to someone's home. Unfortunately, it broke, but those are the types of things. It's not the time. The packaging was wrong on it, so it was damaged. That's sort of my background. I spent a lot of time really focused on customers and providing good customer experience through the world of logistics. And then in the 7 or 8 months or so, I started a YouTube channel because I laid off when times were tough. And a friend of mine was like, "Hey, do people understand like how important you are?" But they don't, and that's why I keep getting laid off. So I'm going to make a YouTube channel to explain how important that we all sort of live in is, because no one is doing that. And so I've used my LinkedIn, platform to help push that and provide a bit more explanation on like what are we doing and why is it important? What do all of these different things mean? Because even I didn't understand what the hell it was until like a couple weeks ago, or a couple months ago, or sorry, a couple years ago, like how all that works and what is important with that. Since I work in a very different of logistics from probably what y'all's content is. I do freight brokers and freight forwarders, but I really only have one. I don't need a whole lot of freight movement. I pay our vendors move it for us. So that's sort of what I've done. Focus on the domestic side, although the international side is a lot more fun. Let's see, there's lots of things that go on there. So yeah, that's sort of the 10-minute.
Well, awesome. Yeah, very impressive. It's always an interesting question to ask, how you got into logistics. It's very rare that you talk or find somebody like, how'd you get into logistics? They're like, oh, I wanted to be in logistics since I was 6 years old. For me, when I interviewed for my first job, it was a freight brokerage. I didn't really know what it was, and I thought it had something to do with finance just because of brokerage, right? And then I got in there, and they're talking about middlemaning trucks and everything. And I was just, like an 18-year-old kid. I was like, why not? And then like a week later, it's like, I guess this is what I'm going to do forever. So yeah, very cool. And Crunchyroll, that's an interesting concept. So when we first, reached out to you, I was under the impression that Crunchyroll was some kind of food, right? So it's very neat to hear about that operation and your experience.
Yeah. I've never worked in the cold chain side, but that's all other world of logistics that I don't really want to touch. Dealing with stuff that goes bad.
I won't either. So the first load I ever moved was a reefer load, 3-pick US, 2-drop Canada. It was my second day. And from that day on, I was like, I'm never touching a reefer load ever again. Matt over here, on the other hand, he's a big reefer guy.
So I like that. It's kind of cool how there's different perspectives. Like I know you said international is your favorite. I did a very brief 3 months as a shipper, and I was a truckload broker, and the international side was very confusing to me. It's much more challenging, but some people, like you just mentioned, you that stuff is fun for you. There's a lot more. Maybe you could tell the audience, but there's a lot more that can go wrong, I feel like, with the international side than the domestic side.
Yeah, international is fun because you start getting into like legal parts and like where lawyers are paid millions to negotiate with the government on like the definition of a thing. And so I find it interesting. Also, I like to travel. So I've now been in the course of my career to Hong Kong 9 times, London once, and then all around. You name sort of the state, I've probably been there and sat in a warehouse an ungodly amount of time. But yeah, the international is a lot of fun. It's nice that there are like set schedules and you can end on them, barring anything crazy. And the world of logistics, as we know, we've all been through the pandemic, can get really crazy. So I remember in February of 2020, as the world was starting to down, I was getting asked like, hey, are we going to be able to move our stuff out of China? All these orders, coming up, ready to go. Like, what are we going to do? And so I was throwing out numbers, making best guesses. I was doubling and sometimes tripling the price of shipping in. And then at some point, China just stopped shipping. Customs closed down. Everyone sort of looked at me, and I was telling our COO and CEO, like, hey, we've never had this before. I don't know what the playbook looks like. I don't know how to move this stuff, right? Because put it on a plane, I can't move it past, and like no country has ever like closed their doors before. So we're all sort of in territory. And so those are the challenges that I find enjoyable, is figure out like how can we do this thing, and get it. That's what I find really, really fun about international, kind of its own thing. It's become a lot different recently. I know when I at Kendra in 2016, you made a choice. Like you either shipped with FedEx or UPS. That was it. And then, or you could ship with the post office. And now you have a whole host of options available to you. And now the domestic transportation scene has become, especially parcel, has become a lot more nuanced and fractured. And so UPS and FedEx are now playing catch up, and there's a lot of different that we're seeing domestically. So it's been really interesting to watch the change, and complexity of the networks has increased over the last 5 to 7 years to be really interesting. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a good ride. I like to get stuff moving.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, the way you're describing it, all these unprecedented events, getting things out of China to close their doors, sounds like a nightmare. It doesn't, for me, when I think about that, I'm not like, oh yeah, like I love that. It sounds like, man, that sounds like a fever dream. You know, I'm getting anxious just thinking about it.
It was a fever dream. You know, it's really funny when, speaking of 2021 was the Ever Given got Suez Canal, and like the memes were just like top notch. They were fantastic. Yeah. And everyone was like, oh, Matt, that's what you do, right? Like you do that stuff. Yes. All the problems that I deal with behind the scenes. So yeah, that's kind of looking back, I remember pretty vividly being in 4th grade, going to circus and seeing, three-ring circus, and I like couldn't care less what was going on like the main, circus ring, clowns, whatever. Like, but I was intently watching, like people behind the scenes, next acts, and getting stuff ready in the other 2 rings. And so it's now apparent to me, like, oh, this is of course the world that you're going to live in, is the behind the scenes world, making stuff happen that no one's going to understand. And so that was interesting to me, looking back on that in my life. But yeah, I think supply is a lot more interesting to a lot more people, especially as the world kind of changes on how things get moved, and as countries get more upset with it becomes challenging, and I like a good challenge.
Yeah, sounds like you do. Yeah, it's always interesting to talk with somebody that's outside of logistics about what you do. So for me, for the longest time, I'd like get real intricate, but nowadays we're just like, we just move big stuff on trucks. Try to keep it as simple as possible. So I can only imagine for you, because it's much more intricate with all this international. Because my company, we do quite frankly, just like the simplest form of logistics, right? Over the road transportation for the most part, A to B. So yeah, I mean, that's crazy. Very, very, very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're talking about this too. Like, how many calls do you get? Where people are talking to you. I mean, you just mentioned most of your domestic freight is vendor routed, and kind of what you do internationally. I mean, do you see a lot of the people that are reaching out to you that have like somewhat of an understanding of that, or do you think most of them just assume you move 15,000 truckloads all domestically, and it magically appears there?
Sales calls, I don't know, at least 10 times a day. I get someone trying to reach out and move my freight for me, and I'm like, hey, I love you, I appreciate the hustle, I'm with you on the grind. I just don't have that much freight to move. Like, I have a good connection with a broker. Hopefully he's watching this. I don't know if he wants to shout himself out, he certainly can. I told him to watch it because he might get a shout out. But you know, I have a very good connection with a great freight broker, and he makes life so easy. And so I just go like, hey, I got a guy. Like literally my first day at this new role, they're like, hey, we need to move this truckload. Do you know anyone? I was like, oh, I got a guy. And like first call to my boy, and he, you know, he makes it happen. And so, like, God love you, freight brokers. That guy answers emails and phone calls on his days off. I know I've talked to him, and when he's on vacation in Mexico, like I would never want to do that. Like I'm sure you make a lot of money. I know I've given you a lot of money. I've set you up a bunch of companies that continue to use you, but like I don't want to be that connected to my phone and my email. So yeah, sales broker or freight brokers are a really interesting bunch. Probably the weirdest thing that I've ever had someone try and pitch me with is they actually left me a voicemail, which most people don't do, and they sang like a Backstreet Boys song asking me for my freight. I was like,
you didn't even give them a look. You wouldn't even give them a look after they sing a song in your voicemail. That's crazy.
He didn't leave his number. He didn't leave his name. I didn't know who he was.
Oh, man.
And so no, I posted on LinkedIn, and he actually found me on LinkedIn, and he was like, "That was me, bro. That was me." And I'm like, that's a terrible way to earn my freight. Like, I'm never gonna go with that guy. Like, unfortunately for you, like, again, I appreciate the hustle. It's not gonna happen for you, bro.
Must not have been a good performance. I mean, if he was a good singer, would you at least consider it?
I mean, if he did, I'm not a Backstreet Boys fan. You know, if like my tastes run towards NSYNC, as we sort of, if you saw the LinkedIn post, you probably saw everyone discussing it. But yeah, that was, it was just like, what the hell?
Yeah,
so yeah, that was an interesting one.
So for anybody listening, any freight brokers that are prospecting, if you're going to leave a singing voicemail, do your due diligence, you know, find out what kind of music they like, and then maybe go something with that direction. If the guy listening that left the Backstreet Boys, you know, missed opportunity there, would have played something up his alley, who knows? He could be his broker. So
there you go.
Think about.
Would you say you're getting more emails than phone calls? 10 a day is, you know, pretty heavy. Or do you have unique people just try to like show up at your office randomly too, or videos, or is phone
about to get a bunch
of
of DMs after this show, most likely.
I get a bunch of DMs. What's funny, so every Friday I've gotten into a habit on LinkedIn of putting up some sort of meme about logistics. They get pretty good views. One of the best ones, aside from the mac and cheese, which I'm sure we're going to talk about later, was like a Zen can next to a like Fireball whiskey shot. I was like, oh, there must be a freight broker on my street. So that one got a lot of hits. And then, yeah, I sure like DMs got just slammed with like, I want to move your freight. You're hilarious. I'm like, yes, I know I'm funny, but like, I don't have that much freight to move.
That's great. Yeah, it's funny. You kind of like mentioned that, like the memes. So I don't know, when you think about like traditional marketing, I feel like we've seen a huge shift right over the last 5-10 years of like memeing. Like Truck Stop does a great job. They're on LinkedIn and they'll comment everything, get all kinds of interactions. You see people like Reed with Lost Freight just memeing their way, and it's just like, man, it's fantastic. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. Even your mac and cheese post, man. It's like something like that just goes viral.
20,000 impressions. I think you made a post. Maybe you can explain it, but like it was like a combined of all your last 5 posts, and the mac and cheese like crushed every other post.
Yeah. So the mac and cheese, there again, the world of LinkedIn is hilarious to me. I find it wonderful to be a part of that community. And so someone like my muse for it all was this guy who had proposed to his girlfriend, and he put up this beautiful picture of him proposing on the beach to his now fiance, and his like copy was all the like 8 things I learned about business proposing to my girlfriend. I was like, this is dumb. Like, it's so dumb in so many ways. So literally I was like at my in-laws house making like frozen mac and cheese for my kids. I was like, oh, this is a dumb thing. I should take a dumb picture about this dumb thing, this really gross looking mac and cheese, and put it up on LinkedIn. And I expected to get like 0 views. And I'm at like 30,000 views right now. My analytics are all skewed because of that like crazy outlier. And now I'm like, Mr. Mac and Cheese on LinkedIn. Like, that's going to be the thing for the rest of my life. I'm like, okay, so be it. So yeah, that was a good one. But yeah, LinkedIn, I don't know. I feel like everyone's trying too hard on LinkedIn. Like just calm down. Like there is certainly a place for people who know what they're talking about. And I tried to be for a long time. I tried to be that person to like showcase your experience. Like make sure that people know that you're an expert in this field. And like, sure, every now and then I'll throw out a post like that, but like I'm no Nate Skeever. I'm no Bill Shube. If he's watching, he's a buddy. Like my content is going to be like making fun of this world that we're in. And every now and then I'll throw out a post that like proves like, oh, I am actually good at my job. I do know what the hell I'm talking about.
Well, hey,
but I don't LinkedIn like Twitter.
Firing off LinkedIn posts from the in-laws while you're making mac and cheese, you might have that dog in you, Matthew. You got a certified dog on the podcast right now.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I completely agree. I think that a lot of people take themselves too seriously. I encourage everybody to have fun with it, man. Just the other day, which I've got a pretty good amount of followers. Someone's like, how did you do it? It's like, man, I just like when I'm feeling it, I just fire from the hip. I log in and like I just speak what's on my mind. I don't try to dress it up. Like I speak about like what I care about, what's important to me, like my thoughts, like whatever. I'm not like trying to just run it. Yeah, don't overthink it.
Totally agree. Yeah, I appreciate that there's a new wave of influencers, if you can call it that. We're not getting freaking paid to do this, of like people who are just like, let's have fun on here. And I know I like to joke with Thomas Ordine. I saw him on here. I was on Think Freight. I think they do a great job. I appreciate what they're doing for the world and the community. And so yeah, I love having a good time on LinkedIn and just like meet people, because what is not discussed enough in this community is we all talk to each other on the shipper side. Like I know a lot of people either through LinkedIn or what have you. And when I have a question about, new carrier that I want to use or some new process, I'll go and ask my peers and say, hey, like, I trust you. I know what you're doing. What do you think about this? What do you think about this carrier? What do you think about this person? And we will talk amongst each other. And I have steered people towards certain companies and away from others. I won't name names, but there's this conversation that y'all might not see on the shipping side, that shippers, we want to know who can do the job and get it done, and we will talk amongst each other. And LinkedIn's a great way to like get into that world. So that's a lot of fun.
It's interesting. So I mean, do you guys, would you see that certain companies, for example, of bigger sizes, somebody might have dealt with them and are you seeing like similar experiences, with wars, because some of these companies are so big, one shipping manager may have a great experience because he had a good branch, and then another, one of your friends had a terrible experience because his, branch is poorly run and where the rep is, poor as well.
Oh yeah. The sales rep is so important to a business. And my experience has been a lot more on the parcel side, as I mentioned, than the freight side. And if you get a bad sales rep or account rep on the parcel side, it doesn't matter, right? If you're using FedEx, UPS, the post office, DHL, like these are huge companies. It doesn't matter. If you can't if I can't like get a hold of you, then there's a problem, and I will move my freight because I can't get things, done the right way. So most of my recent conversations have been with peers who move a lot of parcel or who have connections that move a lot of parcel. And I'll ask them, hey, what's going on with this type of service? So again, like I mentioned earlier, UPS and FedEx had a lockdown on parcel shipping for decades. And now there's a lot more different types of injection models and how things work. And that's where we start getting involved in the world of freight by zone skipping. So I'll load up a full truck and then move it into a zone to drop my overall price. And so then I'll start asking those questions of people of hey, who's a good freight broker? Who's trustworthy? Like, who do I know? And I can call at 5:00 on a Friday with my warehouse in LA. That's 3:00 there. They need to move volume and get it off the dock. And I got a guy, and I call my dude up and we get it rolling. And I've had similar conversations there. So yeah, there's a lot of like insider note trading. And yeah, the salesperson is so important that like I would trust that person over the larger company in a heartbeat.
It's interesting you bring this up because maybe I have to connect you guys after the show, but I was just talking to a shipping manager who was having a lot of issues with the exact same issue of partial and a representative and not knowing if there was any other options other than a couple of them that you mentioned. And she's recently, I think, found an option, but it's kind of interesting that we're talking about this as, the parcel industry is, I don't know much about it, but it seems like it's growing more competitive, which is a good thing. It sounds like.
Yeah. There's a lot of different, types of things. You as a shipper. So one of the first things that when I'm coming into a new company, I want to understand what am I shipping and what makes my stuff unique, and how do I find the right provider to maximize that uniqueness. So, if I'm shipping to the East Coast a lot, right? So in the case of FabFitFun, we were shipping out of LA over to the East Coast a lot. And so I was trying to get, one, good dedicated freight rates to zone skip to get across the country. And then two, I was looking for a provider who could provide me good rates on the East Coast, even though I wasn't starting my volume there. And so there's lots of nuances now in the world of parcel, and a lot of specialization in either like you could go with like urban, less than 1 pound. I could say, hey, this is the name of the person you need to talk to if you're primarily shipping there, or if you're larger than shoebox, you should look at these people. Or as we move further into the world of like gig economy and gig deliveries, that's a whole new thing where 6 years ago we were questioning whether there was validity in using a regional carrier, using an on-track or a Lone Star Overnight or a Laser Ship, who's now merged with on-track. And now we're at the question of like, can a gig driver deliver? And there's a whole host of other issues that come with that. I know I put up a funny and 100% true Instagram short of a driver like driving through someone's yard. That 100% happened to me. And I saw a Ring doorbell video of this dude like driving through someone's yard, and sure enough, we had to give him a refund. So there's a host of like issues that come with using these new carriers that you need to be aware of. And yeah, you got to trade notes with someone who's been there and ask those types of questions.
Yeah, Matthew or Sean Matthews.
Yeah,
definitely agrees with you. Do you see this? And our audience probably isn't going to be as curious about this question as I am. But one thing that was surprising to me on the international side too, was customers caring about what steamship line. That I guess some steamship lines they could have the lowest rate, but were notorious for all these other problems, and just how they operated. It seemed like I thought some parts about full truckload are very archaic, but like how the ocean steamship lines where I had, some of it was wild to me. Maybe just, who knows, maybe there's some freight forwarders in our audience, but you're heavy on that. Do you see that, or was that kind of a surprise, like learning about, it was fascinating to some degree, just how the ocean steamship lines and the different, nuances, of those work.
Yeah. Yeah. So most recently, and I don't know if you were in it when it was bad. So most everything coming from China or Southeast Asia is going to port in LA or Long Beach, which are like right across the street from each other. So that port handles more container volume than any port in the US. And they have like 6 public terminals, and there are some steamship lines that have their own terminals. And so the reason why a shipper would designate the use of one steamship line over another would be to get around that line. So as peak season becomes more of an issue and those ports become more backlogged, you can get your freight off of a boat and onto the road faster if you use a steamship line that has their own port terminal. This is crazy nuance, but like in the world of e-commerce logistics, getting stuff like when it has to be there is so important. And we all sort of learned this lesson in 2020 and into 23, really, is when it started to get better. Where, you know, shipments that we normally expect to take a month, we're taking 6 weeks, if not 8, sometimes 3 months to get off of a ship because there's just huge backlogs. So that would be where you kind of you'd move to a different line by designating like, hey, I want it to go on this particular steamship. I know that their processes are faster or better or what have you than someone else. So that's sort of that's the deeper answer to that question of like, why would you designate a specific steamship line?
Were you seeing issues too? Like the shipper I was at, we were constantly disputing charges from certain steamship lines. Like, and it would be expensive. I had no idea, but there'd be like $40,000 worth of invoices that we'd be disputing. Then we'd go through this process. Then they would like 90% of the time agree with us. But I just wonder if like some shippers aren't auditing their, you know, international and just blindly paying all this money that, you know, ocean steamship lines would waive if you disputed, which is something I guess on the truckload side too. But
big on LTL.
Yeah,
that's huge in LTL.
Yeah. So I always have an auditor. I always push to have an auditor. So there's freight auditing, freight broker auditors. There are parcel auditors. There's some companies that do both. So I'm familiar with, if you heard of Orca, I use them at another company. They're fantastic. They do a really great job. And yeah, if you're not auditing your invoices, you're leaving money on the table that you shouldn't be. And like you said, there's so many things. I know just looking at an ocean invoice, you start questioning like, why the hell am I paying for like harbor upkeep? Why is that a thing that like exists? Like that's like part of the thing. Like, no, but that's a separate surcharge that you're going to get smacked with. And so, yeah, like I thought the world of parcel had a bunch of surcharges and fees. It's got nothing on ocean freight at all. It's at a new level over there.
It's interesting. So when you talk about auditing with those companies, so you're outsourcing your auditing. You're not doing that in-house?
No.
It's interesting.
Yeah. I always outsource someone else. So 2 reasons why. One, I'm a busy dude. I got other stuff to worry about. Could I audit everything? Yeah, but I'm shipping thousands of parcels a day. I don't have time to, you know, audit those things. So there are software companies, like I mentioned, Orca is a good one, that have developed software to do that thing for you. They've seen a lot of stuff. They've audited a lot of shipments. They know things that you might not know. And while I can negotiate a good contract, having someone else who's got my back is so helpful because they have the expertise, they have the infrastructure to do the thing that you want them to do, and they do it really well. So yeah, I typically always outsource that and build a relationship with those guys for better use.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've just never heard of that. We could probably use one on the LTL side. It's similar, but I mean, we don't get hit with harbor upkeep. I mean, that's crazy. But there was a lot of like reclassing or like like limited lift gate. I mean, all kinds of like weird stuff.
The other interesting part to me was direct rates. Maybe it's because I was strictly a truckload broker, reefer, flatbed, but like we had direct rates with most of the steamship lines. So the freight forwarders would call us, but we were getting better pricing most of the time than they would get. But it's interesting, like certain areas, depending on our own volume of our product, would be a much better rate. So I kind of see, I guess, and maybe I'm wrong here, and you have much more experience, than me. But is it easier for you to maybe consider a freight forwarding sales call than a freight broker in the sense, just since there's, depending on which areas you go to, pricing can be much different?
Yeah, so freight forwarding is an interesting world. I've used, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 different freight forwarders in my time. They run the gamut, right? So there are players in the game that are extremely technical, and you would go with them because you want a good customer experience, you being the customer. So places like Flexport and Expeditors have put a lot of money into their software and provide you with a really good visibility of like where your shipment is and how much it's costing and all of that stuff. What you were able to do, because you probably had a lot of volume, is you were able to negotiate directly with the steamship lines. I've never been in a position to ever do that, either because I was on the domestic side when we had the volume to do it. So at Four Hands, we were moving just tons of containers out of India and China. And we were able to negotiate directly with the steamship lines because we were moving at huge volumes where we were taking up, 10 to 12 container spaces on a ship every month. At Apple, we had something similar, but I've never personally been the one doing those negotiations. I go with the freight forwarder because, like, again, I have someone else who can, like, you do that, you figure that out. I don't want to worry about like where stuff is and worrying about drayage and when things are there. Like, I have talked to my vendor and I will tell them to talk to you, and now you take care of it. I've got other things to worry about, and like I will manage you. So that's the benefit of a freight forwarder. Most of them, again, having been in the game for a minute, I know what everyone's doing. I know kind of the plays that I would make, and really specifically why I would, add one freight forwarder over another. There's some that work really well, like out of Europe, which is a different thing. Some work really well out of India. Some are good out of South China and not North China. There's lots of reasons why you would use one freight forwarder over another. They cannot all do everything equally great. They really focus on certain things, and you have to know, like I said, the nuance of your business and how to flow into those lanes really well. So yeah, to answer your question, I would talk to a freight forwarder probably before I would talk to a freight broker, but that's just the nature of my personal business, that I don't do as much over the road freight currently.
It's kind of interesting, and that's why I think doing your homework, for any brokers out there is important, because like the shipper I was at, we were small potatoes on the truckload side, but these ocean reps, twice while I was there, they came and flew in to visit us because, we had heavy volume of, exporting, but to a truckload broker, we weren't even in some of my friends' CRMs, like big brokerages. So, do you see that kind of like in the outreach you're getting? I mean, are you seeing any of these emails like where they're actually doing research? Or are you seeing a lot of spray and pray, or what are you kind of seeing out there in this market?
I see probably 80% of what I'm getting reached out with is spray and pray. Like, I can tell very quickly, this is a canned email. Your CRM is just reaching out to me because you found me on LinkedIn, whatever. Or I really love when I say something about dumb brokers reaching out on LinkedIn, and then someone will comment with a dumb broker post, like reaching out to me for my freight. I'm like, read the post, guys. Like, I'm trying. I'm here. I'm trying to help you. I really like when a freight broker reached out to me, through my DMs, they'll say, hey, how can I get your freight? And I go, hey, I made a video for that. Here it is. And like, boop, you're done. Like, go watch my videos, learn how to reach out to me. I think that is such an important skill that is not taught well to salespeople and brokers. Like, you got to do some legwork. Like, you got to know what I'm shipping. And if you're even a solution, because I've gotten so many like reefer flatbed brokers reach out to me. I'm like, I'm shipping jewelry, man. Like, I don't need reefers. I don't need, flatbed. Like, come on, like, look at what I'm doing, please. Like, you can see me on LinkedIn. I freaking post just about every day. Like, look at what I'm doing and make an educated guess and see, like, tell me how you can solve my problem. Like, make a guess at what you think I'm having a problem with. If you think that, like, it was DOT Blitz week this week, if you think that I'm getting slammed because you can see, like, oh, Matt moves a bunch of stuff over the road, he may be getting slammed with these extra fees for Blitz week. Hey, I can solve that problem for you. Like, that is the easiest way for me to go, like, oh, okay, I'll talk. I had someone reach out to me on the parcel side recently into my DMs, and I just kind of like, I very much, I try and like respond very nicely. Hey, thank you so much for reaching out. I'm not in a place to move freight right now. I'm really set. It's sort of my like canned response, just to kind of, the way I've heard it respond. So that if someone reaches out to you, like, it's like a handshake. You don't want to like leave them hanging. So I will typically respond to like, hey, thank you so much. And this guy was actually like, hey, no, I'm actually like with this parcel carrier. And I went, oh, actually, I've heard of you. I almost worked for you. Like, let's talk. I'm actually doing this. I'm bidding out some parcel right now. So let's talk. Now, let me be very clear. If you're watching this and you are a parcel salesman, don't DM me. Don't hit me up. Like, I'm set.
We're going
I'm
to
good.
anyway.
I know what I'm doing.
It's gonna happen.
But yeah, so this guy was like, oh, I didn't realize like you were with them, like we can talk. So those are the types of things I really like it when someone, takes interest in what I'm doing, has at least watched one of my videos, and goes like, hey, I really like this thing, or this was really funny. That's like gonna get you in my good graces really quickly.
Yeah, that's a good point. Obviously, I'm not a shipper, but I get lots of sales, whether it's software or whatever. And a lot of times I'll open it up and it'll just be so long. It's like, I'm busy. I'm not going to read your 8-paragraph message. And sometimes I respond like, can you like describe what you do in 2 sentences and how it's relevant? And if they can't do that, then I don't entertain it. But I really like how you mentioned pointing out something relevant. I've gotten a few of those where they talk about one of my posts or something I'm doing. And I'm immediately like, okay, I want to talk to you, whether it works out or not. But yeah, you're much nicer than me. I'm usually not like, oh, thank you so much for reaching out. I just don't respond.
You got a bigger following than I do, so that's why.
Yeah, it's really ironic because I'm in sales, right? But like, I don't like salespeople. I don't like the calls. I don't like getting caught off guard. So that's interesting. It's good insight for anybody listening that's working on prospecting or sales within the industry.
That's really nice of you, though. I mean, what you said about responding, because I'm sure you get overwhelmed with the amount of emails, calls, DMs, and and I understand it, but a lot of shipping managers I know just don't respond to the 80% of the bad stuff. Some of the good stuff they sometimes say gets missed too, or goes back. So I mean, that's got to add probably. That was one thing that surprised me. I thought I'd just be dealing with carriers, brokers, shipments all day, but there's like a bunch of other stuff that goes into the job. So I imagine responding to all of that is adding a lot of time to your day.
If I can tell like it's a canned email that's coming, either automatically generated, then I won't bother. But if you take the time and you mention something or you're asking a genuine question, I'm a lot more likely to respond to you. And typically I will respond to my LinkedIn DMs a lot more than I'll respond to an email. I know it's weird, but like it seems a bit more personal and a bit more one-on-one. So yeah, I try. I'm not amazing. I don't get it all 100% of the time, but I will try. If you take the effort, I will return some effort back to you.
So what are some good characteristics? I know you said, and he's probably watching right now, he or she, your broker that you use that, you like, that, has made it, be a long relationship. Cause I feel like some people think, once they're in the door, that's, but to actually have a long-term relationship, you actually have to do your job well.
You got to do your job real well. Yeah. So first off, this I won't say his name. He can come in if he wants to. I told him he may get shout out. So he's at Arrive Logistics. I've used Arrive Logistics at 3 companies now, and at each place I have added them specifically because of him. And they do a fantastic job. They are solid. They're a good company. I've added him because when I have a problem, he's able to solve it. And I will have a conversation with him and say, hey, I'm doing this thing. How do you suggest I solve this problem? Right. So I recently had an issue where I was trying to return some stuff to 3 different vendors and they were different size pallets. So I had like 2 pallets or 2 shipments. One was a 2 pallet, one was 3 pallet. And then I had one that was 8. And so I was like, hey, how do you recommend I do this? And he provided me with a solution. Or in other cases, I've had 3 or 4 different pickups in the same like LA area. One that is like 9 pallets, and then a couple that were 2. And I'd say, hey, what's the best way for me to do this? Like, I'm by no means a genius at LTL, FTL, and what that world looks like. That's what I'm using you for. Provide me with what you think that solution is. I'm gonna generally go with it. And so I say, hey, these are all kind of geographically close to one another. They're in the same city, or at least in the same suburbs. Is it possible to go and pick these up and I buy the full truck and you just go pick them up? And he said, yeah, I can do that. We do that all the time. So things like that, where you help me save money and look good for my bosses, and I will give you money you know, all the time. So I will use him to the end of my days. He will be my guy. And I will continue to give him a lot of freight because like he makes it so easy. And it's so, we have a good relationship having now been at 3 different companies together. He's helped me out of a lot of binds, has sort of been there when I've needed him. And he's just done a bang up job every single time.
Yeah, I remember his original sales pitch all those years ago, or how he connected with you?
No, the way that I connected with him was that Four Hands was already using Arrive Logistics. They were using it when we would need to buy a full truck for excess capacity. We would use them already, and so he happened to, like, I sort of stumbled into this relationship, and it was like, man, you're fantastic. You're so good. So if you remember, so I was at Four Hands in 2021. That was when people were buying furniture like crazy. And so we were outstripping our existing carriers' ability to provide us with volume. So we were shipping more than they could handle. And we would have to buy extra trucks to do that first inject, to get it to wherever their first sorting facility was. And so I would call up and say, like, hey, I got 3 trucks that I got to roll like today. Can you get it handled? And he'd be like, yep, got it. Got you taken care of. No problem. He'd tell me the rate. I'd agree with it, and off we would go. So he made it very easy. And because of that, I've given him a lot of business ever since then. So yeah, that's sort of how that relationship started.
Yeah, I think that the last part there, being easy to work with, that goes a long way. I think that people really undervalue. I mean, there's such a big emphasis on like sales, right? Like getting in the door, and then you get a shipment. It's like, oh, I have this new customer. And it's like, well, they can be gone in a week. You know, it'd be easy to work with, quick responses, and like you're talking about, almost taking on like an advisor role. You know, like John Rogers and Jeff Dickinson, both very active on LinkedIn. That's a big thing that they talk about, right? Is getting to know your customers' operations inside out, and being somebody that they can rely on for that information and making sound judgments. So yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. Also, you gotta love a customer that so you're his contact, right? And then he gets set up with this company, you leave, get him set up with another company, then leave, set up another one, and he's working all the accounts. You know, we got a few of those, and it's like that's when you know the relationship is solid. When the contact's leaving and he's reaching out, and it's always a really good sign.
Yeah. He has done. He's like batted 1,000. He's gonna appreciate that because he used to play baseball for TCU. It helps that he's actually here in Austin, so I can bop down and grab drinks with them. But I swear I don't get kickbacks from them. They haven't paid me a dime for any of this fantastic marketing I'm providing them with. But no, like he makes it so easy. He makes it so good. Like again, we talked about like how important a sales rep is. It's innumerably important. Like I can't put a number on how worth it is. And there are some times when I'll use him over somebody else. He may be $100, $200 more expensive, but like I know the thing is going to get done, and I know it's going to get done right because he's got my back. He's had my back 1,000 times before. He's going to have them again, and I will keep giving him business. Yeah, if you're in sales or you're a broker and you're out there hustling, like find a company and like get your foot in the door with a company you want to work with and with a human being that you want to work with, and like build and develop that relationship, and it will pay dividends in the future. It's going to be a lot harder like to get onto it, but it's so important. And like, again, shippers, we all talk. Not only have I like given him my business at multiple companies, I have told other people to ship with him and given them his number all the time. Cause I'll throw it out. Again, we shippers, we talk all the time. We will trade notes, and I will recommend like the best of the best.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. And I don't think it's talked about enough, right? Like there's just so much sales content out there, but customer retention, servicing the actual accounts. And then at a certain point, just from a broker standpoint, especially if you're operating on a cradle to grave model, ideally you get busy and you don't have the same time for prospecting and sales, and you're getting new business through what you're describing through referrals, right? Yeah. And that's it's just such an easier in, right? Somebody's vouching for you as opposed to a cold call. It's it's night and day. So yeah, that's awesome.
100%. Yeah.
Is there any? Well, I guess we haven't touched too on your YouTube channel. I want to make sure we got on that because I think that was pretty cool. I remember before you started at Crunchyroll, I remember seeing some of your posts and checking out your YouTube channel. How did that? I know you kind of touched earlier that you we're looking for work and someone said, get yourself out there. But what's kind of strived you to continue that, or what's kind of your goals, or I guess just in general talk kind of about the YouTube channel, because you don't see too many shippers that have a YouTube channel.
Yeah. So one, like I'm driven by the market. I look at a lot of what's going on in the market, and I am very interested in the world of social media and what it can do. And so really, I guess, like long-term vision casting, what I hope to achieve with Low Budget Logistics, which is my YouTube channel, although I haven't posted content in a long time because I got busy, because I got a job. But what I hope for it to be is a place where shippers can meet with one another, can talk, can build this community around this thing that we all do, and we can help provide, valuable content and valuable interactions. So one, like, the format and theme of the channel is very easy. Like my intent is that some, supply chain professor at some university will type in like this thing, right? Like the whiplash effect, in hopes that he's going to, put up some video to give his students like a 5 to 10 minute explainer, like whatever. And then he's going to dig into that content. So that's sort of the format of what I'm posting.
That's great, man. Because you see, or at least I see a lot of content from people maybe like talking or teaching about something, but they're not actually doing it, right?
Yeah.
I think it's always, I don't know, it's something to consider, right? When you're consuming this content, like who's providing it, right? Or do they have any actual experience with this, or are they just shilling some course? So yeah, no, that's awesome. We'll drop a link to his page in the comments once we wrap up. About to go check it out.
Yeah. So yeah, the hope is to keep moving on that. I know I kind of need to get back in the headspace of doing it. But again, hoping to like educate people, maybe, change their minds and see this as a viable opportunity. I know I didn't know about the world of logistics and supply chain until I was in the Marine Corps. That was way down the line for me. And so I think it's such an important part of our world and our society. And it will continue to be important. And I think, getting more people involved in this community is going to be a good thing. So that's sort of the drive behind it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, it's been fun, having you on, Matt. We, appreciate you coming. I guess before we go, if anyone's watching has put some of the comments up, but if anyone has any questions, we'll have to do this again. It was great having you on, and I hope you don't get, too much of an increase in DMs over the next week.
It's gonna be a lot. I'm used to it. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, brace yourself. Well, yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. Anybody listening, if you are going to reach out, don't leave them any voicemails. Backstreet Boys, that's been proven to not work.
I like country western. You can try that.
Country western makes sense. Hey, it's on brand for Austin, Texas.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. I guess we'll wrap up. Once again, shout out to our sponsors, Sales-CRM. Anybody looking for affordable sales software, those are the guys to go to. Josh Lyles, you can find him on LinkedIn, or just give Sales Dash a Google. And once again, we'll link Matthew's YouTube page in the comments if anybody wants to check it out. But yeah, we'll wrap up episode 2 with that. One question. JJ wants to know if you have any dedicated freight. We're already shooting. Crazy.
All right now.
All right, guys. We enjoyed it.
Yeah, have a great day, guys.
Have a good day.